Hey, you're listening to Vixen After Dark. I'm Ipsha Dutta, your host, your storyteller, and the girl who clearly has not learned to stop answering when the other side calls first. Tonight, we're back inside Sweetu's house in Bhubaneswar, the one that doesn't just hold its breath, it remembers. And it's starting to forget the living. Last time, I told you about the first night in Sweetu's apartment. Sketches that kept drawing themselves, a corner of the living room that refused to stay empty, a sketchbook that seemed more hungry than haunted. Kia, Sweetu's cat, started talking in my head like it was the most normal thing in the world. Grandma dropped prophecies like casual comments over tea. And just when the house felt like it was holding its breath, he appeared. The coolie from Howrah, standing by the balcony door like he'd stepped straight out of the station fog and into their living room. No one else could see him, but I heard him clearly. We ended with an eye in a sketchbook that no one remembered drawing, a fan that stopped mid-spin, and a feeling that something inside that house had finally noticed me. This is episode 4, The Listener Between Stations, the next chapter in Echoes of the One-Eyed Watcher. The night doesn't kill you, it just rearranges what you think is real. Morning comes eventually, but what if the house you wake up in has already started to forget itself? What if the thing you're hunting has already chosen you? So grab your headphones, find a corner of your room you've never really paid attention to, and if your reflection blinks a second too late tonight, maybe don't lean closer to check. Morning came reluctantly, dragging sunlight through the curtains like a guilty child. The previous night's madness clung to me like cigarette smoke, faint, sour, and impossible to wash off. I had spent the hours before dawn staring at the ceiling fan, wondering if the rest of my life would now involve arguing with invisible entities and cats with opinions. By the time I stepped out of the guest room, Sweetu's apartment had already resumed its act of pretending to be normal. The smell of coffee and toasted bread drifted from the kitchen. Auntie was humming under her breath, though she kept pausing midline like a radio losing signal. Sanjeevni scrolled through her phone, pretending she wasn't sneaking glances at me. And Sweetu, my poor Sweetu, sat with her sketchbook open, eyes ringed with sleeplessness, pencil tapping against the paper like an anxious heartbeat. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual. "Everyone alive and relatively not possessed?" Sanjeevni didn't look up.
Define possessed. Because if it includes math homework, then yeah, totally haunted.
Auntie smiled faintly, distracted.
You joke so easily, beta. Maybe it keeps fear away.
Or attracts it.
Grandma muttered from the corner, not looking up from her prayer beads.
They like bold ones.
Who likes bold ones? I froze, mid-sip of my coffee. Grandma lifted her gaze, eyes sharp as pins.
Those who watch but never sleep.
Sanjeevni rolled her eyes.
Okay, now I'm never sleeping again. Thanks, Grandma.
Sweetu groaned softly.
Grandma, please. Not now.
But I didn't dismiss it. Not anymore. As I sat down across from her, I noticed her sketchbook, a page filled with faint outlines, half erased, half formed. In the center was a single perfect circle, shaded to near black, surrounded by spirals that looked uncomfortably like motion. That's new, I said carefully.
I didn't draw it.
She replied automatically, then sighed.
Okay, maybe I started it. I don't even remember when, but it's there now. Creepy.
Sanjeevi said around a mouthful of toast.
10 out of 10 for nightmare fuel.
I glanced at Kia, perched on the windowsill, tail twitching. Her voice slid through my head like static wrapped in silk.
It's hungry.
I stiffened. Kia, I murmured without moving my lips. Can we not do the telepathic jump scares at breakfast?
You asked? I answered.
Her tone was dry, unimpressed.
You're the one pretending this can still be explained.
Well, excuse me for clinging to science, I muttered under my breath.
Science clings back,
She said.
until it breaks.
Sweetu gave me a strange look.
Ipsha, are you talking to my cat again?
Technically, I'm arguing with her.
Right.
Sanjeevni chimed in.
Totally normal. Talking cat, haunted art, burnt toast. Just another Tuesday.
Before I could respond, Auntie let out a sharp yelp. A pan clattered to the floor. She blinked rapidly, disoriented.
When did I was making coffee, right?
You were, I said gently, 5 minutes ago.
I don't remember.
She pressed her temples, frowning.
I thought I just entered the kitchen.
Sanjeevni frowned.
You sure you're not possessed, Ma? Because if you start floating, I'm filming it.
Sweetu shot her a glare.
Not helping.
She held up her hands.
I'm coping through content, okay?
Sweetu rushed to her mother, worry etched deep. I noticed something else. A faint smear of graphite on Auntie's wrist, the same shade as the sketches. I reached out and wiped it gently with a napkin. It came off as grey dust. Been sketching? I asked, keeping my tone light. She looked confused.
No, beta, I don't even touch those things.
Sanjeevni leaned over, peering at the napkin.
Okay, that's unsettling. Can we maybe sage the house or uninstall the demon?
That was when the first chill crawled up my arms. Subtle, precise. This thing wasn't just haunting, it was spreading. Later that day, when the house quieted, I sat by the balcony with Kia stretched beside me like a miniature partner. The sky over Bhuvaneshwar was an uncertain blue, the kind that pretends it doesn't know what clouds are. "All right, Professor," I murmured. "What exactly am I dealing with here?" Her eyes slitted.
You humans call it haunting. But this is hunger that paints. It doesn't kill, it consumes from the edges.
Edges of what?
Perception, attention. The more you notice it, the more it notices you back.
That's... I stopped. I couldn't even make a joke. So I should just ignore it?
Can you?
She asked simply. I didn't answer. From behind the balcony door, Sanjeevni's voice floated in, mock sweet.
Hey, arcane analyst and detective Whiskers. Lunch is ready if you're done summoning existential dread.
Kia flicked her tail, unimpressed.
Mortals and their timing.
That night, I lay awake again, the walls faintly glowing with streetlight filtered through the curtains. Somewhere near midnight, I heard a faint scratching. Pencil against paper. My pulse thudded. Sweetu's door was slightly ajar. Yellow light spilled out in a thin strip. I pushed it open slowly. She was asleep at her desk, head on her arms. But the pencil in her hand was moving, jerking, uncertain, tracing uneven circles across the page. I reached forward and caught her wrist gently. Her fingers twitched once and went still. The pencil rolled away. The drawing she'd been making was simple. A single eye, not large this time, small, incomplete, like it had just opened. I glanced at the mirror above her desk. My own reflection blinked half a second later than I did. And that's when I heard it, the faint, distant chime of a train horn, carried on no wind, from nowhere near any track. By the third morning, the air inside Sweetu's apartment felt heavier than ever. It was not suffocating yet, just dense. Like the walls had soaked up too much of last night's silence and didn't know what to do with it. It was the kind of quiet that buzzed faintly at the edges of your hearing, the way old televisions hum when left on mute. Even the usual chatter of Bhuvaneshwar outside, vegetable vendors, scooters, the faint honk of traffic, sounded distant, like it belonged to another version of the city. Auntie was already up, moving around the kitchen with a kind of distracted efficiency. Twice I watched her pause mid-motion, ladle in hand, eyes vacant, as if a thought had frozen midstream and refused to finish. Sanjeevni sat at the dining table, one leg swinging, slouched over her phone.
Do you guys hear that buzzing sound?
She asked casually.
Or am I getting possessed through Bluetooth?
Sweetu shot her a glare from behind her coffee mug.
Can you not start this at breakfast?
I'm serious.
Sanjeevni tapped her ear.
It's like a mosquito, but in stereo.
It's not a mosquito.
Grandma muttered from the living room. She sat in her armchair near the window, prayer beads slipping through her fingers, eyes distant, but sharp.
It's the house remembering how to breathe.
Sanjeevni blinked.
Okay, that's worse than a mosquito. Noted.
I watched them all. 3 generations under one roof, trying to function while pretending the air didn't feel wrong. The light from the balcony shimmered faintly, breaking against invisible dust motes that seemed to move against gravity. My stomach knotted. Sweetu, I said quietly. Where's the sketchbook?
Locked in the cupboard,
She said, setting her mug down.
under salt, under prayer threads, and under the watchful stare of my feline babysitter.
Kia, from her perch by the window, flicked her tail.
Babysitting is beneath me.
Her voice slithered into my mind.
But if it tries to crawl out again, I'll eat it.
Good, I muttered under my breath.
What?
Sanjeevni asked, squinting at me. Nothing. Just talking to your cat.
Of course you are. She meows at the walls and you talk back. You guys deserve each other.
Sweetu laughed weakly, but her eyes stayed glued to the shut cupboard.
You really think it's contained?
For now, I said. But it doesn't like being ignored.
So, haunted and attention-seeking, just like every influence ever.
By late afternoon, the apartment's temperature had dropped noticeably. The air felt damp, like after rain, even though the sky outside was bright and cloudless. Auntie complained her fingers had gone numb while washing rice. Grandma didn't look up from her beads when she said,
That's because something else is touching the water too.
Sweetu exhaled sharply.
Grandma, please.
But the old woman wasn't listening. Her voice had shifted into something rhythmic, almost melodic.
The one who sees all.
She whispered.
The one who never blinks. The one who waits behind the glass.
Sweetu and I froze. Grandma, I said softly, kneeling beside her. Who told you that? Her eyes flicked toward me, momentarily lucid.
He did.
Who?
The one in red.
She said.
He said not to be afraid. He said you'd understand.
The words drained every drop of warmth from my skin. I sat back slowly. The coolie. She'd seen him too. Across the room, Sanjeevani muttered.
Wonderful. Grandma's vibing with the undead now, and I still can't see my career prospects. Balance.
After dinner, the house settled into its nightly performance of denial. Auntie insisted on cleaning the kitchen twice. Sweetu tried to make small talk about work and deadlines, though we both knew neither of us was logging into any portal soon. Sanjeevani did what youngsters do best, turned fear into humor.
So,
She said, leaning against the fridge.
since we're apparently living inside a Netflix horror limited series, what's our plan, Detective Dutta?
I looked up from the notes I was making. My plan? Try to survive past the season finale,
Cool.
she said.
Can I get a cameo before I die?
Only if you stop sleepwalking, I shot back. She blinked.
I what?
Sweetu's spoon clattered against her bowl.
You don't remember?
Remember what?
You were walking in the hallway last night, I said gently, murmuring coordinates.
Coordinates?
She repeated blankly.
Like GPS?
Exactly. I recorded it. I passed her my phone, playing back the tinny audio, her own voice, low and mechanical, reciting numbers.
20.5, 72 east, 47.9 south.
Her mouth fell open.
Well, that's creepy as hell.
Welcome to my world, I said. Do those numbers mean anything to you? She thought for a moment, then shook her head.
No, but it sounds like something from a railway map.
I froze. You sure?
Yes, Dad used to love train routes. I've heard him say coordinates like that. You think this thing likes trains?
Before I could answer, a faint clang echoed through the corridor. Like metal striking metal. A chill rippled through the floor. It was around midnight when I saw him again. I'd stepped out to the balcony to get some air, and there he was, standing across the street under the flickering yellow lamplight. The coolie, still in his red shirt, still calm, still utterly out of place. He looked up at me, eyes steady, and for a moment, everything else blurred.
It's not haunting,
He said softly.
it's remembering.
The sound wasn't carried by air. It was inside my head, resonating with a strange familiarity. Remembering what? I whispered. But when I blinked, he was gone. The space he'd stood looked impossibly empty, the air faintly shimmering like heat rising from train tracks. Behind me, Kia's voice slid through the silence.
You saw him again.
Yes.
Then it has already chosen you.
Chosen me for what? She leaped onto the railing beside me, eyes glowing faintly gold in the dying light.
Ikaksha.
The name itself felt heavy, like it carried its own echo.
The one-eyed watcher.
She said.
Once a guardian like your man in red. But it looked too long into the dark between worlds, lost its other eye. Now it borrows sight through sketches, reflections, sound. It feeds on being perceived.
I blinked, trying to keep up. Wait, like my man in red? You mean the coolie? He's a guardian?
Was.
She corrected softly.
Still is, in some ways. Guardians walk between realms, not alive, not dead. They keep the boundary intact, make sure what belongs to the dark doesn't wander into the light too long. They are protectors.
I let out a shaky laugh. And I have one? Since when did I qualify for celestial bodyguard service?
Since you started listening,
She said simply.
most people drown out the whispers between worlds. You don't. He's been watching over you for years, Ipsha, keeping you tethered when you wander too close.
That made my chest tighten. The idea that something, someone, had been following me unseen across train stations and dreams felt too large to hold. So he's not dangerous.
No, but the thing that hunts you is.
I stared out at the empty street again. The space where he'd stood still shimmered faintly, the air bending like heat over metal. I turned to face Kia. So every time we notice it,
It grows stronger.
and if we ignore it,
It grows hungry.
that's not a great set of options, I muttered. She shrugged, as much as a cat could shrug.
Balance, Ipsha. You mortals love pretending it's possible.
I sighed. You're a real comfort, you know that?
I try.
I couldn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. After Kia's revelation, my mind wouldn't shut up. Guardian spirits, one-eyed watchers, echoes between worlds. It all kept looping like a glitching reel. Every creak of the apartment felt deliberate. Every shadow on the wall looks like it wanted to finish a sentence I couldn't hear. By 3 a.m., I'd stopped pretending. I kicked off the blanket, switched on the desk lamp, and started scribbling. Notes, patterns, half-formed theories, every detail from the past 2 days. The flickers, Grandma's mamas, Sanjeevni's coordinates, the voice on the train, the coolie's vanishing act. I pinned them down on paper like I was trying to wrestle the chaos into logic. Kia sat, curled on my bed, tail flicking, watching me with that patient, unnerving intelligence. You could help, you know, I muttered.
I am helping. I'm not clawing the curtains.
I was mid-eye roll when a soft knock came at the door. Sweetu slipped in, 2 mugs of coffee in hand, hair tied in a messy bun, eyes half awake.
You're still up?
She said, voice a mix of concern and exhaustion. I could say the same about you, I replied, cleaning a spot on the desk.
Couldn't sleep. Sanju started mumbling coordinates again.
She said, setting 1 mug beside me.
Also, Kia is staring at the wall like it owes her money.
I snorted. That's just her processing trauma. Sweetu sat beside me, gaze drifting over the mess of notes and sketches.
So,
She said slowly.
you've officially gone full conspiracy wall. Do I even want to ask?
Probably not, but I'm telling you anyway. I took a sip, the bitterness grounding me. Then, quietly, I told her everything. The conversation with Kia, the mention of guardian spirits, the coolie's warning, the truth about Ikaksha. Sweetu listened without interrupting, though her expression shifted from disbelief to something heavier. When I finally stopped, she exhaled slowly.
You think this thing's been here for long?
Maybe not here, I said, but somewhere nearby. The question is, why now? Kia stretched, her tail curling into the lamplight. Her eyes caught mine, sharp, golden, ancient. I didn't have to hear her to know she was listening. I felt her voice slide against my thoughts. Calm, careful, unnervingly human.
Because someone called it or woke it.
I froze. Sweetu frowned.
What? Why are you looking at me like that?
She says someone might have called it, I said quietly.
She?
Sweetu's eyes darted to Kia.
Don't tell me she's actually.
Talking? Yeah, apparently. Sweetu groaned and buried her face in her hands.
Of course she is. My cat's possessed, my sister's sleepwalking, Ma's losing herself, Grandma's psychic, and you're casually chatting with invisible people. I love this timeline.
I glanced at Kia again. You mean someone here called it? The cat's tail flicked once.
Someone, somewhere. The boundary's thin. Anything could have slipped through. A dream, a thought, a drawing.
Not me.
Sweetu said quickly, catching my expression.
I swear I didn't.
I hesitated. You've been sketching new pieces lately, right? Anything different? She bit her lip.
There was one. I dreamt of a place. Mist, old tracks, a single headlight in the dark. When I woke up, I drew it. That's when the weirdness started.
My pulse quickened. The same track Sanjeevni described. The air in the room thickened again. Slow, vicious, like invisible smoke rolling through space.
So what does it want?
Sweetu whispered. Kia's gaze flicked to me, her fur bristling slightly.
Not her. Not them. You.
I swallowed hard. She says, I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. She says it wants me. Sweetu blinked.
You? Why?
I looked at Kia, who didn't blink. Her voice in my mind was softer now, almost a whisper.
You heard it first. You see both sides. It knows what you are, Ipsha. A listener between stations.
For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I'd spent my life brushing shoulders with the unseen, but this was different. This wasn't curiosity or coincidence. This thing wasn't haunting me. It was watching me back. And somewhere far off, faint but clear, a train horn cried, low, mournful, and almost knowing. Morning light spilled through the curtains, but it didn't feel like light anymore. More like a memory of sunlight trying to remember how to be warm. The Naik apartment had begun to forget itself. The air felt reused, every corner echoing with half-remembered conversations and footsteps that didn't quite belong to the present. Auntie stirred tea at the counter, her movements oddly methodical, as if her hands remembered what her mind didn't.
Sweetu, hurry up with your toast.
She said, absently.
You'll be late for school again.
The knife slipped from Sweetu's fingers and clattered against the plate. For a second, she didn't breathe.
Mum,
She said quietly.
I haven't gone to school in 15 years.
Oh,
Auntie murmured, blinking as though waking from a dream.
right, of course.
She looked around the kitchen, confused.
Where's Nisha? Tell her to finish her homework before I...
Mum,
Sanjeevni said, frowning.
who's Nisha?
Auntie froze, the spoon halfway to the teapot. For a moment, her eyes went glassy, searching for an answer that wasn't there. Then she smiled faintly, too quickly.
Never mind. I must have mixed something up.
Her gaze drifted toward the window again, her lips moving soundlessly, as if continuing a conversation only she could hear. It was the third time that morning she'd forgotten what world she was in. The first time, she'd left the gas on. The second, she'd looked straight at me, called me Meeta, and asked why I hadn't come home for the puja. Like she was speaking to someone else. Sanjeevni looked up from her phone, trying for humor but missing the mark.
Okay, not to be dramatic, but if Mum starts talking to imaginary people, I'm calling an exorcist.
You don't have to, I murmured, watching Auntie's hands tremble faintly. I'm already here. She gave me a weak smile.
Right, our in-house Ghostbuster Datta. Great.
You're not charging enough for this.
Kia's voice brushed across my thoughts, dry as dust.
At this rate, you should bill hourly.
I shot her a look. She stretched languidly across the windowsill, one paw draped dramatically over her face.
What?
She purred.
Humor stabilizes human cortisol levels. I'm helping.
Sweetu gave me a puzzled look.
You're glaring at my cat again.
She started it, I muttered. Kia yawned.
Always do.
Grandma sat nearby in her armchair, the beads of her rosary clicking rhythmically. Her eyes were distant, but her voice was steady, eerily so.
The watcher was once the god.
She said softly, each word perfectly spaced.
The god forgot his name. The name became hunger. The hunger learned to see.
The sound of her voice filled the room like a low vibration. Sweetu looked up, startled.
Grandma, what does that even mean?
Grandma didn't answer. She simply kept murmuring, another riddle, another verse, until her tone shifted into an old chant I didn't recognize. Kia, sitting near her feet now, flicked her tail irritably.
If she starts glowing, I'm leaving.
She said. Noted, I whispered back. Sweetu turned to me.
Is that bad?
It's not good, I said, scribbling the words in my notebook. But it's information, and that's something, Kia sniffed delicately.
Information won't save you from hunger, Ipsha.
Yeah, but it'll tell me what's eating us. I muttered. By late afternoon, I was on the balcony, tracing the coordinates Sanjeevni had mumbled in her sleep. I'd drawn them out on paper, converting numbers into a crude map, one that led us to the outer edge of the city. A decommissioned signal post. Sweetu joined me, 2 mugs of steaming tea in hand.
You look like you're plotting a heist.
Depends, I said. Do ghosts count as stolen property? She sighed and leaned on the railing beside me.
You know, when I called you, I was expecting a prayer or maybe some sage advice, not a whole paranormal investigation board.
Yeah, well, I said, glancing at the web of notes taped to my notebook. Once you've banished the cursed toaster, you kind of lose perspective. That made her snort, despite herself.
How do you do it? Just keep functioning through all this.
Same way you do, I said, sipping my tea. Pretend it's normal until pretending works. From inside, Sanjeevni's voice rang out.
Hey, Spectre Sleuth, the Wi-Fi just died again. Should I light incense or restart the router?
Try both, I yelled back. As dusk approached, the temperature dropped again. The curtains fluttered even though every window was shut. That familiar vibration returned, low and throbbing, as if something was pacing beneath the floor. And then I felt it. The static hum, the one that meant he was near. When I looked out, the coolie stood across the road under the sodium lamp, still in that same red shirt, his expression serene, but his presence unmistakably heavy. The street seemed to bend around him, shadows curving subtly, air rippling as though refusing to touch him. My pulse stuttered. You, I breathed. You've been following me. He looked up, eyes steady and knowing.
Not following.
He said quietly.
Watching. And you can see me now.
What do you mean now? I asked. His voice carried through the still air, soft but deliberate.
I've always been here, Ipsha. Watching. Guiding when I could. You just weren't ready to see me yet.
I gripped the railing tighter. That explains a lot, I muttered. All those years I thought someone was there when no one was. I thought it was just paranoia. Or maybe the price of watching too many horror films. A faint smile tugged at his lips.
Not paranoia. Instinct. You've always felt the spaces between worlds. The hum that separates the living from the remembering. That's what drew you to the things others run from.
I always thought my obsession with ghosts and cursed objects was an anomaly, I said, laughing weakly. Now it just feels like destiny. He nodded, something like pride flickering in his expression.
When I saw you at Howrah, standing in the light of that station, I knew you were ready. You finally saw what had been there all along.
My chest tightened. You looked almost relieved.
I was.
He admitted.
You've no idea how long I've waited for you to see me, listener. To finally speak instead of whisper.
I offered you a tip, I said suddenly, the memory flashing sharp. And you said you'd already got it? He smiled then, and there was something impossibly sad in that curve of his mouth.
I did, long ago. You don't remember the lake, do you? The night the sky cracked and the world tilted?
My throat went dry. I was 8. I fell in.
You didn't fall.
He said gently.
You were pulled. You heard something calling your name from the water, and you listened. I carried you back,
My hands trembled against the railing. You were there,
I always was.
he said.
I've watched you since the first day you opened your eyes to both worlds. You were born a listener, one who can hear what lingers between realms. Guardians are bound to your kind. I was bound to you.
Bound? I whispered. Like, to protect me? He nodded.
To guide, to warn, to keep the balance. But I failed once. And what I failed became this.
Ekaksha, I said, the name tasting like iron. A flicker of pain crossed his face.
He was my mirror, my twin in purpose. We were both watchers once. I watched the crossings of life. He watched those of death. But he envied the light I was given. He wanted to see everything, every life, every death, every thought. When he tried, he tore the veil open. He saw beyond what should be seen, and he never stopped seeing.
Which turned him into
Hunger,
he finished softly.
a hunger that consumes every gaze turned toward him. That's why he watches through others now, through sketches, through mirrors, through eyes that look too long.
For the first time, his calm wavered, just slightly. His shoulders stiffened under the sodium glow, and his gaze drifted somewhere far beyond the street, as if replaying a memory carved into eternity.
I tried to stop him once.
He said finally, the words quiet and heavy.
When his hunger began consuming the very souls he was meant to guide, I had no choice. I bound him. I sealed him beyond the crossings, locked him in the space between reflections where no light reaches. It was mercy and punishment.
His voice trembled faintly, like the echo of a forgotten storm.
He screamed my name as the seal closed. For centuries he slept, dreamless, silent, until someone broke the binding and whispered his name again.
I felt the back of my neck prickle. So, someone woke him? He nodded slowly.
Yes, the seal was not broken by accident. It takes intent, desire, maybe greed.
He looked up at me, his expression haunted.
Whoever did this, Ipsha, knew what they were calling, and they knew what it would cost.
The street light flickered again, haloing him in faint gold. He took a step backward, fading slightly in the yellow light.
You can't kill what doesn't live, Ipsha. You can only sever what ties it here. Find what woke it. Seal it again.
And with that, he was gone, disappearing like mist into the flicker of the street lamp, leaving behind that faint metallic scent of iron and sandalwood. When I turned, Sweetu was standing at the doorway, pale and shaking. Her voice trembled, though she tried to sound steady.
Who were you talking to?
I hesitated, the last trace of sandalwood still hanging in the air. Someone who's been with me longer than I realized. Sweetu's brows furrowed.
That was him, wasn't it? Your guardian spirit?
I met her eyes and nodded once. Yeah, the one who's been keeping watch. From behind her came Sanjeevani's voice, dry as ever.
Great. We've officially reached imaginary friend from beyond the grave level of creepy.
Before I could retort, Kia strutted into the room like she owned the place. Tail high, eyes glowing faintly. She jumped onto the sofa, circled once, and sat down with imperious calm.
She's got a point.
Her voice slid lazily through my mind.
At least your imaginary friends show up on time.
I bit back a snort. Not helping. I muttered under my breath. Sweetu blinked.
You're talking to her again, aren't you?
Technically, she's talking to me, I said. I'm just trying to keep up. Kia flicked her tail, looking smug.
That's because I'm the only one here with any sense of style or strategy.
Ignoring her, I started moving around the room, grabbing my bag, flashlight, salt pouch, and the old notebook that was now half filled with sketches, sigils, and half-coherent theories. Sweetu frowned.
What are you doing?
Packing, I said. I'm heading out. Sanjeevni raised an eyebrow.
At midnight, sure, because that's when all the good life choices happen.
I need to see what's at those coordinates you muttered while sleepwalking, I said, zipping up the bag. If there's something there, it might tell us how this started. Sweetu's eyes widened.
You're not going alone.
I'll be fine, I said, slipping my phone into my pocket.
Uh-huh.
Sanjeevni said, crossing her arms.
You say that like it's ever worked before. We're coming.
Absolutely not, I said flatly. This isn't a field trip, it's...
Exactly why you shouldn't go alone.
Sweetu interrupted.
If something happens...
I'll handle it.
Handle it?
Sanjeevni echoed, scoffing.
You've been here 4 days and the furniture's been rearranging itself. Clearly things are going great.
Kia stretched, her whiskers twitching.
They have a point, Ipsha. You'll need witnesses when the local news starts asking how 3 women disappeared chasing ghosts.
I groaned. You're all impossible. Sweetu met my gaze, eyes firm despite the tremor in her hands.
We're family, Ipsha. You came here to help us. Now, we help you.
For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the ceiling fan and Kia's tail thumping rhythmically against the cushion like a metronome of doom. I sighed. Fine, I said finally. But stay close, and if anything feels wrong, you run. No heroics, no side quests, no Instagram stories, understood? Sanjeevni grinned, grabbing her jacket.
No promises, Ghostbuster.
Kia leaped down from the sofa, landing silently by my feet.
You'll need me too,
she said, voice low and certain.
You always do. Someone needs to stop you from doing something heroic and stupid.
Gee, thanks, I muttered. The coordinates led us to the outskirts of Bhubaneswar, a stretch of forgotten railway land tangled in weeds and silence. The air smelled of rust, rain-damp iron, and something faintly electric, like a storm had passed but forgotten to leave. Even the moon looked reluctant, its light thin and colourless, slipping through the fog like it didn't want to witness what we were about to find.
This place looks straight out of a horror film.
Sanjeevni muttered, swatting a mosquito.
Congratulations, we're officially idiots.
Not yet, I said, scanning the tracks. Idiots would have come here without salt. Sweetu held a flashlight close to her chest.
Just tell me what we're even looking for.
Something that doesn't belong, I murmured. Something that feels wrong. We spread out, the gravel crunching underfoot, flashlights cutting through the mist. The old signal post loomed ahead, its red light flickering like a pulse. Beyond it lay the shell of an abandoned control hut, half collapsed, overrun by vines, walls covered in faded railway markings.
Over here.
Sanjeevni called, her voice unsteady. She stood near a half-buried metal box, its lid warped open. Inside were scraps of burnt paper, a few coins, and what looked like a torn piece of red thread, the kind used in old rituals. Kia, perched on a rail, hissed low.
Don't touch that.
I crouched closer anyway. The air around the box felt thicker, heavier, humming faintly under my skin. Among the debris was something glinting, small, brass and old. I brushed the dirt away to reveal a locket, circular and edged, with strange uneven markings.
That's it,
Kia said, her voice curling through my mind like smoke.
What is that?
Sweetu asked, trying to peer over my shoulder. The anchor, I said quietly. Someone used this to wake Ikaksha. It's what tied him here. Sweetu's face went pale.
But who would even know how to do that?
I straightened slowly, brushing soil from my hands. That's a good question, I murmured. But the real question is, why would someone want to wake Ikaksha? The words hung in the air like a draft from an open tomb. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Kia's ears twitched, her voice curling through my mind.
because curiosity isn't the only thing that calls the dark, Ipsha. Sometimes it's envy.
I glanced at her, unease tightening my chest. Then whoever did this didn't just wake a curse, I said. They invited it. Just then, Sanjeevani knelt beside a pile of weeds and pulled something out. A silver ring, still gleaming despite the grime. It was carved with initials.
Detective Datta,
She said, handing it to me.
this doesn't look cursed, but it definitely looks expensive.
I turned it over in my hand, brushing off the dirt. The letters engraved inside were faint but legible. Before I could say anything, Sweetu leaned closer. Her breath hitched, just slightly, and for a fleeting second, something flickered in her expression. Shock, recognition. Then, just as quickly, she masked it. Sweetu? I asked. You okay?
Yeah,
She said too quickly.
just tired.
She looked away, pretending to fix her flashlight. I studied her for a moment, but didn't push. We'll figure out who it belongs to later, I said, slipping the ring carefully into my pocket. For now, we seal the locket before it draws more attention. We buried the locket deep again, circled the patch with salt, and whispered the words under our breath. The ground trembled once, faintly like a sigh, and then stilled. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Even the air seemed to hold its breath.
So,
Sanjeevani finally said, breaking the quiet.
does this mean we're good now? Curse over? Netflix and therapy time?
Not yet, I said, watching the dim red pulse of the signal light reflect on the mist. This is just one thread. The real knot's still waiting. Sweetu's voice was small but steady.
Then what do we do now?
Now, I said, standing, brushing dust from my jeans. We go back, we rest, and tomorrow we plan. Kia's tail flicked against my ankle, her tone somewhere between warning and prophecy.
Plans are only good until the night starts listening, Ipsha. Remember that.
I will, I whispered, eyes fixed on the horizon where the city lights bled into the fog, because somewhere beyond that fog I could already hear it, the faint, mournful horn of a distant train. You've been listening to Vixen After Dark. I'm Ipsha Dutta, and if you stayed with me through fractured memories, guardian spirits, abundant tracks, and a hunger that paints itself into the world, thank you for sitting with me in the dark. Tonight's episode was The Listener Between Stations from my series Echoes of the One-Eyed Watcher. We found an anchor. We put it back to sleep. But somewhere out there, something with only one eye is still looking for a way to be seen. If you liked this episode, hit subscribe, share it with someone whose pet keeps staring at the corners. And tell me, if you dug up a locket and realized it had woken something that only grows when you look at it, would you bury it again or keep it? New stories drop every other weekend. Until then, stay curious, stay awake, and stay in the shadows.